Very simple. It's a case of use it or lose it.
It's a simple lesson, but one that threatens to wipe out entire generations of endangered species. A report released by ABC News Today revealed that Melbourne researchers have launched a research project into a group of endangered Tasmanian devils, looking specifically at whether the species has undergone morphological changes, such as a reduction in brain size whilst in captivity. Marissa Parrott of Zoos Victoria said that many animals become less intelligent when bred in captivity, some losing out to a third of their original brain size. Victoria University's zoological researcher Patrick Guay specialises in population genetics and the effects captive breeding has on a species' genetic makeup. He said that captive animals may undergo a change in brain size as generations of species adapt to domestic living where there is little demand to hunt or defend themselves as in the wild.
Very simple. It's a case of use it or lose it. If we look at domesticated animals, they do not need to escape predators, they do not need to search for food, therefore they didn't need the brain capacity that their wild ancestors required in order to survive in the wild. So through countless generations, selection for animals that breed easier in captivity and breed faster in captivity has led into the reduction of the brain. That's because having offsprings that have a very large brain is very costly. You need to invest more in your offspring, and therefore individuals that didn't have large brain were favored because they probably could reproduce faster.
He also said that captive conditions need to replicate the species' natural habitat in the wild in order to help mitigate potential changes in things such as brain size.
The same thing happens in captive breeding program if they're not managed properly. If we look back at zoos 50 to 100 years ago, in some cases the animals were just provided a little bit of space in a cage and no real way of expressing their normal behavior, of searching for food or playing, and therefore there was no strong selection for those animals to develop their brain capacity and use their brain in order to solve problems. And that's resulted over a few generations in a decrease in brain size in some species. But if people are providing good habitat and allowing the animals to express their normal behaviors, my research has shown that it is possible to prevent this from happening.
Mr. Guay is working alongside Zoos Victoria with the Tasmanian Devils and believes the research will find that the species has undergone little changes in brain size as their living conditions are very similar to that of their natural habitat.
I've been working with some of the people at Hillsville Sanctuary on a project looking at exactly the impact of captive breeding on the Tasmanian devil. And what we're hoping to find out is whether there has been a decrease in the brain size of the Tasmanian devil that's been kept in captivity. Now, we don't expect that there's going to be a decrease because we have the people at Hillsville Sanctuary have kept the Tasmanian devil under conditions that are very similar to the natural habitat, and they've provided enrichment. So the project is more of a way to verifying that the animals that are being bred in captivity currently and will hopefully one day be released are being kept under optimal conditions and haven't undergone changes in brain size.
Mr. Guay said that changes such as a brain size reduction occur over 10 to 20 generations, yet the pace of change is determined on the life cycle of the given species.
Some of the studies have found that something in the order of 10 to 20 generations could be sufficient to have a marked decrease in brain size. So it can occur very quickly, especially in species that have a very short lifespan.
Mr. Guay said that species with a larger brain are better at habituating new environments. Therefore, changes to brain size in captivity have the potential to affect species success when being reintroduced to the wild.
There's been some studies that have looked at the correlations between size of the brain and success in introduction but that was done between species, and it was found that species that have a larger brain are more successful in colonizing new areas, new habitat. And what that suggests is that by having larger brain, they are able to process new stimuli and also habituate and get used to new environment faster, and therefore they're more successful. So if we take that sort of result and apply it to animals that have been bred in captivity and that have decreased their brain size, what we can imagine is that if the brain size reduction is significant, these animals might be less successful to being reintroduced in the wild.
In addition to maintaining familiar environments of endangered species in captivity, Mr. Guay said his research has found that programs should limit the number of generations bred in captivity.
Well, the other very important thing that can be done is to keep the number of generations in captivity to the lowest number possible. So if it's possible to breed an animal for 2 or 3 generations instead of 20 generations, the animals that will result will be more similar to animals that are wild. The other recommendation also is that very often it's been found that if you manage the individuals in captivity so that you do not breed together individuals that are very closely related, so brother and sisters or cousins, you decrease the chance of having negative impacts of captive breeding. The adaptation to captivity is in many ways very difficult to avoid, but by providing a good habitat that's similar to the natural environment, and also by limiting the number of generations in captivity, then it can be minimized.
The cause of the Tasmanian Devils extinction can be attributed to a rare contagious cancer called the devil facial tumour disease, passed between infected animals during mating or attack. Yet there is new hope for the species, with a possible vaccine being developed by the research team at the Sydney University Veterinary Department. The vaccine will allow the marsupials to be released back into infected populations, helping to maintain the population's natural genetic makeup. If successful, the vaccine is predicted for release in approximately 10 years' time.